Okay, today we're reading out of As Bill Sees It, the references to the value of inventory. I'll do the reading on 10 and Desiree is going to do 12. Self-searching is the means by which we bring new vision, action, and grace to bear upon the dark and negative side of our natures. With it comes the development of that kind of humility that makes it possible for us to receive God's help. Yet it is only a step. We will want to go further. We will want the good that is in all of us, even in the worst of us, to flower and to grow. But first of all, we shall want sunlight. Nothing much can grow in the dark. Meditation is our step out into the sun. A clear light seems to fall upon us all when we open our eyes. Since our blindness is caused by our own defects, we must first deeply realize what they are. Constructive meditation is the first requirement for each new step in our spiritual growth.
Seeking fool's gold. Pride is the basic breeder of most human difficulties. The chief block to true progress. Pride lures us into making demands upon ourselves or upon others which cannot be met without perverting or misusing our God-given instincts. When the satisfaction of our instincts for sex, security, and a place in society becomes the primary object of our lives, then pride steps in to justify our excesses. I may attain humility for today only to the extent that I am able to avoid the bog of guilt and rebellion on one hand, and on the other hand, that fair but deceiving land which is strewn with the fool's gold coins of pride. This is how I can find and stay on the high road to humility, which lies between these extremes. Therefore, a constant inventory which can reveal when I am off the road is always in order.
Okay, our next reference is on page 17, and then Desiree will read 54 when I'm finished. Toward honesty. The perverse wish to hide a bad motive underneath a good one permeates human affairs from top to bottom. This subtle and elusive kind of self-righteousness can underlie the smallest act or thought. Learning daily to spot, admit, and correct these flaws is the essence of character building and good living. The deception of others is nearly always rooted in the deception of ourselves. Somehow being alone with God doesn't seem as embarrassing as facing up to another person, until we actually sit down and talk aloud about what we have so long hidden. Our willingness to clean house is still largely theoretical. When we are honest with another person, it confirms that we have been honest with ourselves and with God.
To deepen our insight, it is necessary that we extricate from an examination of our personal relations every bit of information about ourselves and our fundamental difficulties that we can. Since defective relations with other human beings have nearly always been the immediate cause of our woes, including our alcoholism, no field of investigation could yield more satisfying and valuable rewards than this one. Calm, thoughtful reflection upon personal relations can deepen our insight. We can go far beyond those things which were superficially wrong with us to see those flaws which were basic, flaws which sometimes were responsible for the whole pattern of our lives. Thoroughness, we have found, will pay and pay handsomely.
Okay, I will read 64 and then Desiree will read 65. Search for motives. Some of us clung to the claim that when drinking, we never hurt anybody but ourselves. Our families didn't suffer because we always paid the bills and seldom drank at home. Our business associates didn't suffer because we were usually on the job. Our reputations didn't suffer because we were certain few knew about our drinking. Those who did would sometimes assure us that after all, a lively bender was only a good man's fault. What real harm, therefore, had we done? No more surely than we could easily mend with a few casual apologies. This attitude, of course, is the end result of purposeful forgetting. It is an attitude which can be changed only by a deep and honest search of our motives and actions.
Growth by the 10th step. In the years ahead, AA will, of course, make mistakes. Experience has taught us that we need have no fear of doing this, providing that we always remain willing to admit our faults and to correct them promptly. Our growth as individuals has deepened upon this healthy process of trial and error. So will our growth as a fellowship. Let us always remember that any society of men and women that cannot freely correct its own faults must surely fall into decay, if not into collapse. Such is the universal penalty for the failure to go on growing. Just as each AA must continue to take his moral inventory and act upon it, so must our whole society if we are to survive and if we are to serve usefully and well.
Okay. I will read 68 and Desiree will read 106. Renew your effort. Though I know how hurt and sorry you must be after this slip, please do not worry about a temporary loss of your inner peace. As calmly as you can, just renew your effort on the AA program, especially those parts of it which have to do with meditation and self-analysis. Could I also suggest that you look at excessive guilt for what it is? Nothing but a sort of reverse pride. A decent regret for what has happened is fine, but guilt, no. Indeed, the slip could well have been brought about by unreasonable feelings of guilt because of other moral failures, so-called. Surely you ought to look into this possibility. Even here, you should not blame yourself for failure. You can be penalized only for refusing to try for better things.
Perfect humility. For myself, I try to seek out the truest definition of humility that I can. This will not be the perfect definition, because I shall always be imperfect. At this writing, I would choose one like this. Absolute humility would consist of a state of complete freedom from myself. Freedom from all the claims that my defects of character now lay so heavily upon me. Perfect humility would be a full willingness in all times and places to find and to do the will of God. When I meditate upon such a vision, I need not be dismayed because I shall never attain it, nor need I swell with presumption that one of these days its virtues shall all be mine. I only need to dwell on the vision itself, letting it grow and evermore fill my heart. This done, I can compare it with my last taken personal inventory. Then I get a sane and healthy idea of where I stand on the highway to humility. I see that my journey towards God has scarce begun. As I thus get down to my right size and stature, my self-concern and importance become amusing.
Okay. I'll read 111, and Desiree is going to read 140. Surveying the past. We should make an accurate and really exhaustive survey of our past life as it has affected other people. In many instances, we find that though the harm done others has not been great, we have nevertheless done ourselves considerable emotional injury. Then, too, damaging emotional conflicts persist below the level of consciousness, very deep, sometimes quite forgotten. Therefore, we should try hard to recall and review these past events which originally induced these conflicts and which continue to give our emotions violent twists, thus discoloring our personalities and altering our lives for the worse. We react more strongly to frustrations than normal people. By relieving these episodes and discussing them in strictest confidence with somebody else, we can reduce their size and therefore their potency in the unconscious.
Defects and repairs. More than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. Guilt is really the reverse side of the coin of pride. Guilt aims at self-destruction, and pride aims at the destruction of others. The moral inventory is a cool examination of the damages that occurred to us during life and a sincere effort to look at them in a true perspective. This has the effect of taking the ground glass out of us, the emotional substance that still cuts and inhibits.
Okay. I'm going to read 149 and Desiree will do 161. Guide to a Better Way. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings which the steps require. But we saw that the program really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness of life as we had been living it. When, therefore, we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. Implicit throughout AA's 12 traditions is the confession that our fellowship has its sins. We admit that we have character defects as a society and that these defects threaten us continually. Our traditions are a guide to a better way of working and living, and they are to group survival and harmony what AA's 12 steps are to each member's sobriety and peace of mind.
Whose inventory? We do not relate intimate experiences of another member unless we are sure he would approve. We find it better, when possible, to stick to our own stories. A man may criticize or laugh at himself, and it will affect others favorably. But criticism or ridicule aimed at someone else often produces the contrary effect. A continuous look at our assets and liabilities and a real desire to learn and grow by this means are necessities for us. We alcoholics have learned this the hard way. More experienced people, of course, in all times and places have practiced unsparing self-survey and criticism.
Okay, I'm going to read 164, and Desiree will do 173. A saving principle. The practice of admitting one's defects to another person, of course, very ancient. It has been validated in every century, and it characterizes the lives of all spiritually centered and truly religious people. But today's religion is by no means the sole advocate of this saving principle. Psychiatrists and psychologists point out that the deep need every human being has for practical insight and knowledge of his own personal flaws, and for a discussion of them with an understanding and trustworthy person. So far as alcoholics are concerned, AA would go even further. Most of us would declare that without a fearless admission of our defects to another human being, we could not stay sober. It seems plain that the grace of God will not enter to expel our destructive obsession until we are willing to try this.
Roots of reality. We started upon a personal inventory, step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is in fact finding and a fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. We had to do exactly the same thing with our lives. We had to take stock honestly. Moments of perception can build into a lifetime of spiritual serenity, as I have excellent reason to know. Roots of reality, supplanting the neurotic underbrush, will hold fast despite the high winds of the forces which would destroy us, or which we would use to destroy ourselves.
Okay, 2:16, and then Desiree will read 2:33. After the honeymoon. For most of us, the first years of AA are something like a honeymoon. There's a new and potent reason to stay alive, joyful activity aplenty. For a time, we are diverted from the main life problems. That is all to the good. But when the honeymoon is worn off, we are obliged to take our lumps like other people. This is where the testing starts. Maybe the group has pushed us onto the sidelines. Maybe difficulties have intensified at home or in the world outside. When the old behavior patterns reappear, how well we recognize and deal with them reveals the extent of our progress. The wise have always known that no one can make much of his life until self-searching becomes a regular habit, until he is able to admit and accept what he finds, until he patiently and persistently tries to correct what is wrong.
Everyday living. The AA emphasis on personal inventory is heavy because a great many of us have never really acquired the habit of accurate self-appraisal. Once this healthy practice has become a habit, it will prove so interesting and profitable that the time it takes won't be missed. For these minutes and often hours spent in self-examination are bound to make all the other hours of our day better and happier. At length, our inventories become a necessity of everyday living rather than something unusual or set apart.
And our final reading is on 261. Fearless and searching. My self-analysis has frequently been faulty. Sometimes I fail to share my defects with the right people. At other times, I've confessed their defects rather than my own. And at still other times, my confession of defects has been more in the nature of loud complaints about my circumstances and my problems. When AA suggests a fearless moral inventory, it must seem to every newcomer that more is being asked of him than he can do. Every time he tries to look within himself, pride says, "You need not pass this way," and fear says, "You dare not look." But pride and fear of this sort turn out to be boogeymen, nothing else. Once we have a complete willingness to take inventory and exert ourselves to do the job thoroughly, a wonderful light falls upon this foggy scene. As we persist, a brand new kind of confidence is born, and the sense of relief at finally facing ourselves is indescribable.